It's Monday, the 4th of March 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1, earnings season is over, and it finished really with a bit of a bang, given overall it was a pretty ordinary performance by corporate Australia.
Companies beating earnings expectations were way more than those missing expectations, 46 to 36%. Though it must be said, those expectations weren't particularly high to begin with. Forecasts are for a 5.5% drop in full-year earnings to the end of June, with just under half of all companies reporting higher profits this half year, according to AMP Chief Economist Shane Oliver. The number of companies upping their dividend, 53%, is lower than normal, and those cutting payouts, 31%, is higher than usual. The energy sector is leading the way in terms of reduced profitability thanks to lower prices for commodities. Bank profits are also slipping a bit. The gist of earnings season, revenue growth has slowed, reflecting the weakening economy. Higher interest expenses are biting, but cost control is pretty good, and wages growth is expected to have peaked. As Dr. Oliver puts it, results are better than feared, but profits are still likely to be down this financial year.
So earnings were a bit lackluster, yet still, Sean, the S&P ASX 200 hit a new record on Friday.
Sure did. Right at the close, it hit 7,745.6 points, a new record. Plenty of optimism out there, notwithstanding some of those results. Some pretty big stocks are up about 50% or more over the past year. Goodman Group, James Hardie, tech companies like WiseTech Global, REA Xero, bunch of others have done well. JB Hi-Fi, Wesfarmers, Westpac, ANZ, National Australia Bank. I could go on. Will it keep going? Well, Shane Oliver says easing inflation pressures, central banks moving to cut rates, and prospects for stronger growth next year should make for okay investment returns this year. However, shares historically fall during the initial phase of rate cuts. Also, there's a risk of recession. Valuations aren't factoring that in. Taking a more democratic approach to your question, people polled by CommSec just aren't as enthusiastic about the market as they were 3 months ago.
All right, moving on to story number 2, and the federal government has retained the seat of Dunkley in Melbourne in the weekend's by-election, Sean, though it did suffer a 3.6% swing against it.
It was pretty much as expected, and given the seat was previously held by the ALP on a 6.3% margin, the electorate now becomes winnable for the Liberals at the next federal poll. The Libs claimed it was a vote against the government's handling of the cost of living crisis. If so, wasn't a severe vote against it. In any case, Victoria's a very tough state for the opposition. It was a good weekend for the Prime Minister, apart from his beloved Rabbitohs losing. He hopes that continues, with Mr Albanese hosting a special summit to celebrate 50 years since Australia became ASEAN's first dialogue partner. That kicks off today in Melbourne.
Sean, story number 3. This is an interesting one. Australia Post wants to close more of its 4,271 branches after announcing a record peak of almost 100 million parcel deliveries over summer.
Boss Paul Graham points out that with so many branches, there are more post offices than Coles, Woolies, Aldi, IGA and Foodworks combined. His point, it's easier to buy a stamp than a loaf of bread. Under current regulations, Australia Post must have a post office within 2.5 kilometres of every citizen in metropolitan Australia. Mr Graham wants that dropped, and Aussie Post is trialling new retail formats like the first community hub in Orange and Central West New South Wales. The business announced a $33 million profit for the December half year. Letters are in decline. Volumes were down 12% last year. Parcels and services are doing better. The group also achieved about $141 million in cost cutting. Pretty impressive. Just so you know, Michael, stamp prices are also set to rise from next month to $1.50 from the current $1.20.
Story number 4, auction clearance rates. Sean, they came off further over the weekend, though they remain well above the level of last year.
The national preliminary clearance rate came in just under 72%, down from 73.5% about a week ago. Clearance rates have been softening the past 3 weeks, and with an average downwards revision between the preliminary rate and the final clearance rate of about 6 percentage points, the final number will come in around 65-66%. It was the second busiest week for auctions so far this year. Sydney's clearance rate came in at 77%, Melbourne at 70%, Brisbane at 65%, Adelaide was 69% and Canberra 64%.
Last one, Sean, story number 5. I love this story, even though it's not really relevant to me. How much money do you think you need to be really rich? We've got an answer for you. It comes from Knight Frank. They reckon to be in the top 1% of the wealthiest people in Australia, all you need is about $7 million.
That's it. Australia now ranks 7th in the world for the money required to be in the top 1%. The exact amount to reach that mark is measured in US dollars. It's $4.673 million US dollars. Australia was third last year, meaning this year you don't need quite as much money to be considered really, really rich when you live in this country. And you're in a club of 15,347 people. Not that many. That's according to Knight Frank's The Wealth Report 2024. What do they spend their money on? Well, Knight Frank also tracks the performance of the popular investments. The one that did best last year was art, then jewellery, then watches, coins, coloured diamonds. The one that didn't do so well was rare whiskey. There you go.
There you go indeed. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Monday, the 4th of March, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. If 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. That comes with interviews and things as well. Today's interview is a great one because it is 7 stocks to watch now that reporting season is behind us. It is really interesting. You'll find Fear and Greed Business News wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.